Can you explain the benefits of creatine and does it make a huge difference?
Okay, so creatine is probably the most important supplement that we can take for performance. When you think about, is it important for what? If you're trying to build muscle and lose body fat, then it is very important because performance is a primary driver of muscle growth, right? So you need to be getting stronger in the gym. And creatine is important, especially for explosive strength. So if you're trying to get stronger in like a 6 to 12 rep range, you need to have creatine available. So creatine is like a cup, right? So when the cup is full and your creatine stores are saturated, then you have access to this explosive energy that you otherwise wouldn't if they were depleted. Now, we don't get enough creatine from food sources day to day. So that's why we supplement creatine in order to make sure that these stores are full at all times so that we have access to this explosive energy. It is very important. It's probably the highest studied supplement on the market, especially for body composition related stuff where we are trying to build muscle and lose fat. So yeah, very important.
One thing I have on that note, a lot of our clients, when they first start taking creatine, a lot of feedback from them is I'm feeling a bit watery or my scale weight has fluctuated quite considerably.
Yeah.
Are these sort of expectations that we should be seeing happening to our clients?
Yeah, this is a very normal thing to occur because we have what's called intramuscular water retention. So creatine helps to pull water and absorb it into the muscle, which is exactly what we want because we want the muscle to be hydrated so that we can have better muscle contractions, we can produce more force, and it leads to better outcomes in training. Along with that intramuscular water retention is an increase in scale weight. But scale weight itself isn't the most important metric. It's helpful information over a period of time. But initially, when we start taking creatine and we see that increase in scale weight, it's just water retention, right? But not bad water retention. It's intramuscular water retention. So it actually makes your muscles look tighter and fuller, which gives you a leaner appearance. The toned appearance that all you girls are after is fuller muscle and less body fat. So if we can improve muscle size, amazing.
Slay.
What happens throughout our cycle in terms of performance, energy, scale weight, etc.?
Speaking from experience, the most common thing that I personally see, and then obviously with regards to our clients, is daily fluctuations are super common. Now, this is pretty evident when we look at our ovulation and our menstrual cycle. Obviously, with the different spikes within our hormones, we will see this happen quite frequently, even on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But in terms of performance, energy levels, especially around our menstrual cycle, it is very, very common to be feeling a lot flatter. Energy is going to be dipping. Your digestion can tend to be off as well. This is obviously the joys of hormones for us females.
Obviously, we have the 4 stages of the cycle.
Yeah.
The follicular phase, which is the start. We have the ovulation, which is right in the middle. We have the luteal phase, which is leading into then the menstrual phase, which is where you bleed.
Yeah.
After ovulation is where we get such a increase in hormones. The increase in hormones is definitely impacting how we feel, how we perform, absolutely. And like Emily said, with digestion, an increase in progesterone. So progesterone is actually one of the hormones that increases during the luteal phase after ovulation because its job is to protect the egg. Now, when this increases, it actually relaxes smooth muscle. So our intestines are smooth muscle. So what happens when our intestines relax is we don't get the contractions we need to pass food through. That's why sometimes these changes in digestion can feel off, but is actually quite normal. And along with the scale weight as well, this is something that I try to explain to a lot of the girls is when comparing your scale weight, I would compare them against stages in your cycle. So for example, compare this ovulation to last ovulation. Compare this luteal phase to the last luteal phase rather than comparing your luteal phase to your follicular phase. Because as we said, your hormones are increasing quite a lot during your luteal phase. So this will encourage water retention. This will encourage slower digestion. So there's more food in the stomach. A lot of these changes increase scale weight. So if you're comparing a phase where that's all happening to a phase that it isn't happening and your body's at a much more steady baseline, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because it's normal that your weight's going to increase during the luteal phase versus the follicular phase.
And when you do that, you can start to see over time. So if you are someone that's weighing yourself almost every single day, you'll start to notice these trends along your weight graphs, where throughout the stages of your cycle, like at ovulation, your menstrual cycle, you'll start to see your weight going up and down. There'll be those little patterns that are happening quite consistently across the board.
Yeah, and on that as well, this is why we highly encourage frequent weighing, because the whole idea is when it comes to anxiety and like stress, I feel like exposure is the best way to improve the situation. Whereas if you avoid it, then when you do eventually jump on the scale, if you jump on at the wrong time, let's say, you don't weigh yourself for 3 weeks and you've been doing all the right things, but then you're mid-luteal phase and you jump on the scale and you're like, I've gone up a kilo. What the fuck's going on? I've been doing all the right things. None of this works for me. When in reality, if you weighed yourself more regularly, you could see that that's probably an anomaly where your weight's increased for 2-3 days, but then comes straight back down as soon as you bleed. So this is why we highly encourage frequent weigh-ins, just to keep you calm and understand, so you can start to identify these patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good question. Can you explain the process that you would do for someone who is commencing a reverse diet?
When it comes to exiting a fat loss phase, the whole goal of this process is to get you back to maintenance calories so that you can restore your hormones, get rid of any diet fatigue, basically just eliminate all of the side effects that come from dieting, right? Which there's a lot of them. Following a reverse diet strategy would be where we incrementally increase calorie intake in order to restore these things. So this can be very different depending on the person, depending also on how low their calories were when they were dieting. I guess the whole thing here with reverse dieting, because we have what's known as a reverse diet and we have what's known as a recovery diet. So a recovery diet, we go straight back to our new maintenance straight away so that we can remove that. But what comes with a recovery diet is we do see larger increases on the scale. We do see some water retention from the carbohydrate intake that we're increasing. And what can happen during this time is a lot of ladies can freak out because they're thinking that all of their hard work that they've just put in has been eliminated. Whereas this isn't the case. It's just your body finding its new equilibrium or homeostasis where we're kind of at a steady baseline. A reverse diet strategy would be where we, again, incrementally increase calories. Now, let's say, for example, you're on 1,400 calories and you've been on this for quite a period of time. If we're trying to get back to maintenance, we need to estimate where this maintenance is, and we need to set a timeline of how long we want to be in this reverse diet phase for. So, for example, if we're going to be in this reverse diet phase for 6 weeks, and we've estimated that your maintenance is 1,900, well, we know there's a gap of 500 calories. So using this time, we would then look for signs of being able to increase where hunger is still very present, scale weight is holding very nicely, and you're getting these positive adaptations to the increase in calories. Then we would then increase the food again, as long as the body is responding well.
And I think it also comes to like what you've kind of said to me in the past as well, is obviously like when we are reversing calories up, looking at like training performance too. So like if our training performance is stalling. Yeah,
that's a great point. In terms of training performance, like we have to always remember that food is the fuel that we use in order to recover and train harder. And I guess the goal going back to maintenance as well is to improve training performance. If we're not seeing improvements in training performance, well, that would be a good time to also increase food. But something that I want to stress too is that when we do increase our calories, if we are still below maintenance, right? So let's say your current calories are 1,400, your estimated maintenance is 1,900. If you're still under 1,900, you're still going to be in a deficit.
Correct.
So you will still lose body weight, just at a slower rate. But with this being said, as we increase food, we can also have very positive outcomes, like an increase in general movement, an increase in performance, an increase in energy, better sleep quality because your body is more fed. And all of these positive things that come with it can actually make you feel so much better, which could improve your body composition. Because improving your body composition doesn't just come from fat loss. It also comes from muscle growth. So if we improve both of these aspects, then we will improve our results as a whole over a long term. So
yeah. I think that's a lot of feedback from the girls that want to have that like toned look like you previously mentioned. In order to achieve that result, we need to have muscle fullness. It's all well and good being in a fat loss phase and being in a deficit to lose fat, but if you don't have enough muscle mass underneath that fat to reveal, then you're not going to get that desired toned look. So I think, like obviously reversing calories back up and increasing your carbohydrates to focus on your training performance is probably one of the most important parts, where people just think it's, hit your steps and track your food, but there's so much more to it. And it's also, making sure that you're putting in the effort within your sessions, showing up and training with intention, and making sure that you're progressing in either weight or reps, week in and week out.
And this is also why we strategically plan phases for clients where we're actively either in a fat loss phase, we're at a maintenance phase, or in a building phase, where we have specific goals within those phases and outcomes that we're after, because you can't just be in a fat loss phase forever, and just losing more fat doesn't equal a better looking body, right? Because again, we need muscle, less fat, more muscle, but everyone focuses so heavily now on how can I just eat the least amount possible, but then everything else suffers. Having time frames and time allocated towards certain phases helps us to stay objective with what we're trying to achieve, and also considering that there is so much more than just fat loss alone.
Is it true that glutes are the easiest muscle group to grow? I wish.
I think there's a few things to this. There's always going to be people who have genetic outliers who just naturally have bigger glutes. They store more body fat around their glutes. But to say that glutes are the easiest muscle to grow would be factually incorrect, because they are also the largest muscle group on our body. So they require more training volume, better quality training volume, better stimulus. So I would argue that they're actually probably harder. When we're looking at muscle growth, we need to consider that training itself is a skill. And when you first start training, you're not going to be very good at it. When you're lifting the weights, the actual quality of stimulus will be quite low. But as you get further into your training and become a little bit more advanced, you will get better at providing a better quality stimulus using the exercises prescribed to you for building your glutes. With that being considered, the glute exercises can actually be quite challenging to learn and improve at, right? Because a lot of compound movements like RDLs, split squats, squatting, leg pressing, step ups, abductions, they're not necessarily easy movements.
No, can confirm they're
right?
not.
They're not. Whereas if you're trying to grow your biceps and your triceps, all you have to do is flex the elbow and extend the elbow. It's very simple. So I would argue that there's so many other muscles that are easier to grow because there's not as much of a skill gap, so that you're able to actually apply more stimulus to those muscles earlier on, because it doesn't take as long to learn. How'd you get that big juicy booty, gal?
She's talking about me or you? Well, there's a few things that obviously assists with growing a big juicy booty, but it takes a lot of time. So the biggest piece of advice I can give someone, and in my experience, it takes a lot of time, and you have to be patient, and you have to show up, and you have to put in the work.
Preach it.
Every single day. Also having a coach definitely helps. Keeping someone...
Have a coach on your ass saying, eat your fucking food.
Literally. And someone that's always watching your Instagram stories and calling you out if you're not tracking your food. But realistically, just making sure that you're really focusing on the intensity within your sessions and making sure that you're tracking your workouts, knowing what your numbers were the previous week, and always trying to improve your form, execution, and just your weight and reps across the board. And obviously, if your goal is to grow your glutes, making sure that you have a specific program designed for you, for your goals, and making sure that you're considering having enough volume across the board for those specific muscle groups, and also making sure that you aren't staying in a calorie deficit, eating 1,200 calories for the rest of your life, because food is fuel.
Exactly.
Our body's preferred energy source is to utilize carbohydrates. So when we don't have enough, we're not necessarily going to be showing up to our full potential within our session. So if we are having enough food to fuel energy, performance, recovery, we are then going to see a lot more change happening to our bodies.
And on that as well, like I actually have a client who recently decided to adjust her macronutrients. So basically the amount of protein, carbs and fats she was consuming. Now she was consuming the same amount of calories, but she decided to increase her fats and decrease her carbohydrates. And what we saw was actually quite a rapid decrease in training performance, which in the short term isn't such a bad thing. But if that's happening consistently over a period of weeks, months and years, then you're not going to make the progress that you want to make, because the most important part to building bigger, stronger, fuller glutes is training performance. We have to get stronger because that's just the fundamental principle. And I also think as well, like Emily was saying before, making sure that you have a program that is designed for you specifically, because, for example, we've had many girls in the past who get a lot of back pain from doing RDLs. We need to make those adjustments to place exercises in their training program that stimulate the glutes without straining the back. Because then when you're training, you're no longer able to actually apply the resistance through the glutes. The back just gets sore, and then it affects your training for the weeks ahead. So this is also very, very important.
Yeah, and I think also, like, on that note of just having a program that's designed specifically for you and your goals, like, it's all well and good to see all these different things on Instagram or TikTok with different workouts, but sometimes specific movement patterns aren't going to be the right one for you and your body composition goals. So just making sure that you're educated and you have the right guidance around you to make sure that you are on track to work towards your goals. Yeah,
most exercises that are stable and allow you to progress consistently over time are always going to take the biggest amount of volume within your training program. And quite honestly, majority of the exercises that look fun, cool and trendy online that aren't the big basics usually don't work very well for very long. And we get what's called novel stimulus. So when we first try an exercise, our body is going to adapt to that exercise with some form of minor muscle growth in the short term. But we need to think about, again, body composition related stuff where we're trying to build muscle. It takes months and years. It's not a weekly thing where we can just build the biggest glutes in 3 weeks. Right? So we need to consider that when we're choosing the exercises. Will this exercise be able to be progressed long term? Now, Emily's run into some issues herself with her own training, which she has some neck issues that we're currently dealing with from some reasons. Now, a jet ski specifically.
Jet ski accident.
Which has forced us to modify her training in a way that we can now use exercises that we can load more over time. So we've had to go from a handheld split squat, because when she holds a heavy dumbbell, because she's so strong now.
Very, very strong.
It places too much strain on her neck. So what we've had to do is adjust it where we're using something that's sitting on her shoulders. So we're eliminating this limitation. And now we're using an exercise that she can progress further over time versus continuing down this path of, yes, the handheld Bulgarian split squat is a phenomenal exercise, but for Emily, if she starts to get any stronger, it's just going to make her neck situation worse. So we've had to make that adjustment so that we can continue to progress. So that's a prime example of making sure your program is specific to your needs and how your body functions.
And lastly, a lot of people tend to think that they should be mixing up their exercise and training blocks consistently and doing different exercises, every couple of weeks, but that's not the case. Because like you said, the more we are continuously stimulating the same muscle groups, the more we're going to be then putting it under pressure over time and obviously allowing us to progress. So there's no point changing your workouts all the time. Keeping the staple movements that you can progress well in is going to be key for your glute growth.